Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of our SubQuery Spaces. Twitter's X Spaces. Forget what to call them these days. My name is James Bailey. I'm your host from SubQuery, and I'm joined today. We're talking about the rise of SocialFi. We're part of a little small series we're doing on SocialFi at the moment, and I'm joined very luckily today by two excellent people in the space that are kind of leading the way, powerhouses in their own right. That you would have no doubt heard of and about. I've got Sid from Roll Network, and also Duncan from Galaxy. Thank you very much for joining me, Sid. Duncan, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you guys can speak now. Why don't we begin with some introductions? Sid, do you want to take us away and lead? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, James, for inviting me. I'm super excited to speak to everyone here. Amazing turnout as well. Yeah, like very high level. I'll keep a lot of the discussion to later in the talk. But I'm the co-founder and CTO at Roll, and essentially what we've been building, so we've been live since 2019, is just the infrastructure for what was then called like the social tokens / Web3 tokens, the creator economy on Web3, and so on. Almost, I would consider that a precursor to the broader SocialFi moment that we are seeing right now. So the idea with social tokens originally was that it gives the way for content creators to own the value that they generate online, irrespective of the platform that they're on. So less of a platform lock-in like Instagram or TikTok, and more of a portable, like a Web3 economic incentive structure from one platform to the other, and then we build APIs into those platforms. So that was the original vision of Goal, and we are kind of like leaning a little heavily now into some of the market side, which I think Roll didn't really, I would say, like lean into originally when we created our original social token structure. So I think that'd be like an interesting discussion to go into later in the talk as well.
And also, we're joined by Duncan. Duncan is from the Galaxy team. Hi, Duncan.
Hey guys, how's it going? I appreciate you having us on and getting a chance to chat. Usually, I'm on the other end. Usually, I'm the host for these, so yeah, I'll do my best on the other half today. I appreciate you asking me to come on. I do the community at Galaxy, and I've been on the team for a long time. Been kind of had my hand in many of the different aspects of what we've been doing as we've kind of just grown exponentially in the last almost 2 years now. It's been an amazing ride. And my background just a bit in the space. I used to run a research group. I spent a lot of time just in the different aspects, learning the different trends, just trying to be involved in as many areas and just try to understand as much as possible. Even if I can understand a sort of even surface level of something that maybe is a little even too crazy for myself, I think that's good to know and to do. And yeah, one of those things that I've obviously taken a peek to as well, of course, SocialFi, and that's sort of a bigger aspect that does connect to us as well as Galaxy, is I guess the best way to explain Galaxy for those that might not know listening is we have a platform that, if you have a project or even yourself as an influencer, you have a social platform with users that are involved, we can help you to complete tasks that users can do and then receive NFTs in return and credentials in return. So we can go into a bit more detail as this goes into SocialFi, et cetera. But yeah, we have many products and services that you can use to help access your community, get closer to them, utilize them, get them involved in your product and what you're doing. And yeah, it's just been such a fun ride. So that's a bit about myself and Galaxy.
I think it's been a fun ride for many of us in this industry in the last 2 years. Bit of a roller coaster, if you will.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested to hear, though, is you two are kind of experts in your field, and it's always interesting to hear how experts try to describe in layman's terms the field that they work in. So, how would you describe kind of SocialFi and this particular like aspect of Web3 to the average person?
Yeah, I think like I can go first, and would love to hear Duncan's thoughts after this as well. He's more diverse in the space, I think, than kind of looking at what everyone else is doing as well. I think like SocialFi really came about with the idea of like combining social tokens with DeFi. It's kind of like almost in the name in some ways. So it's like when originally social tokens came on the scene as like more of a platform play. So this was with Roll and Rally and a couple of other like projects that came on as well. A lot of them did not have active markets. And so for example, the way that we tried to solve this at Roll was to have a Uniswap pool, which was also like an automated market maker back then, and then combine that like with social tokens. The issue was creators had to put in a lot of their own liquidity, and there was the pricing risk then if the price changes a lot. So what we instead focused on was distribution mechanisms. So for example, like how do I get my tokens into the hands of my community as far and wide as possible? So for example, I have 1,000 followers on Twitter, I have like 10,000 on Discord, like how do I get my tokens into their hands? And less on markets. But I think like as the crypto scene itself has evolved and we have seen more protocols come up on the market making side as well, I think this idea of just having markets from day one has become very interesting. And, like Frentech, which I'm sure like a lot of you here know about, I think like really leaned into that design space on bonding curves and like really took up. And I think that was like a really interesting decision that they made early on, and that has like contributed to their success. And so now we have all kinds of, I guess, like economic incentive models that, we could have creator payouts like with transaction fees. So very similar to what we have seen with NFT marketplaces. I think that's kind of now come on the fungible token side of things as well. So that's interesting. But I would say like this is also a very early stage of what SocialFi can look like. Just the idea of like having tokens on a bonding curve is super interesting and important. But I think the real power kind of like unleashes when you can take that token out of that bonding curve and then use on existing DeFi protocols. So remember, I think in my mind, like DeFi is way more mature. So you have protocols like your Uniswap and Aave or whatever. But like, what does that mean? Like we haven't seen, for example, like a SocialFi lending platform. Like what does that mean to, let's say, like borrow from your followers against your social capital in a way that, like SocialFi can uniquely enable. So I don't think we have seen a lot of those types of primitives evolve. So I think it's a pretty open design space right now, probably will be for the next 2 to 3 years. So super excited to, I guess, like build in this space.
That last point you mentioned on lending is interesting. Is that's a tough, I would say that's a tough line to walk when it comes to SocialFi, just in the whole, I'd say, premise behind the social aspect. As personally, I think it's such a hard piece, I think, to stick long term, just due to how I would say shaky social capital is. Because and just in the sense of if we're looking at it from like influencers, the rise and fall can be so quick. Right. And I think it sometimes can be an even crazier variable than the price of Bitcoin. Right. So, yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting piece to see how far it can go. And it's very thought provoking for sure. But it's definitely, I would say, from my perspective, and I think I like to look at it from the perspective of maybe general public who would see something like this platform or more things like this pop up. I think that the initial reaction would be more so fearful, which I don't think is like the worst in the world. I think that's good, right? Because we need to obviously be careful with the platforms we're using and the processes we're taking. But I do think that we're going through a really solid period right now where people are kind of realizing that this is a thing, and that there's many examples of this in general. Obviously, it's not the decentralized variables, but like even just with X.com or Twitter, but the fact that people are actually earning money off their impressions at the moment. And I would like to see this decentralized, but I think the hard part that we have to figure out long term, and one thing that we've kind of gotten involved more in is more so the distribution, like you mentioned, where we have a platform that we can help you connect directly with these users. We can help you distribute directly to these users. But it's the platform where users interact with their, I guess, whoever is on the other end, whether it's a musician, for example. It's hard to make a new social platform stick. I think that's the tough thing that we're going to have to go through. And that if we can get involved with these general platforms right now and get them on board, I think that would kind of kick us off into like the next generation of SocialFi.
It's an interesting point, right? Which, in every industry, there's what we call influencer marketing, right? And it's not necessarily restricted to Web3, although in Web3 it's a lot more than, I guess, other industries. But there's always influencer marketing. You open a magazine, you see your favorite movie star or musician advertising something, and that's kind of the easiest way to do it. Well, I guess being on our side is that we've seen how tricky it is sometimes to measure how much reach an influencer has. And that's an interesting application of SocialFi in the future, of being able to kind of tokenize its reach and being able to more quantitatively measure the effectiveness of a particular influencer on getting your message or your idea or your product or your project out there.
Yeah, I think, like I would probably add that just the idea, I think, like Duncan, like you touched on this as well. I think it is really, really hard to have a new product stick. And, like while Web3 products are evolving at a pretty rapid pace, I would say none of them has the reach, obviously, of something like X.com or, your Instagrams and TikToks. So one of the things that, we had, and like Galaxy does like a really good job as well, it's kind of like indirectly trying to tie users back to the platforms, right? Like end of the day, it's our job as platforms to build tools where we can reach users on the platforms they already are on. And sometimes those aren't Web3. And then you will have to have almost like a Web 2.5-esque bridge where you will have to, let's say, like do an auth into your account and then you get the rewards, but the rewards are on the blockchain. But you'll have to kind of like work around that until I think like Web3 becomes the norm. And you also like a good point about, I guess like lending and stuff. Like we've seen so many like ebbs and falls. So I remember when one of the original, an early role creator like Alex did like a little crowdfund with his social token. I think he raised like $20,000, which the grand scheme of ICOs and stuff is, several orders of magnitude lower. Like moved from Paris to America, and now he's like the CEO of Showtime, an NFT marketplace. And so, like when that originally like happened, people were again like skeptical. It's like, what does that mean? Like to raise money off of your social capital and all of that stuff. But I think like people figure it out. I think everything looks weird on paper. I would say like Bitcoin itself is very non-mainstream. I don't think any economist would have written the Bitcoin white paper. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think like, like maybe that's a primitive or maybe it isn't, but I think I would like love to see some better experimentation around like, hey, does that actually work? Because it can enable a lot of very interesting use cases that genuinely do help people.
No, I agree. And I think that's a really great place to start. Because I think when it comes to social aspects of like users with follower base, it's the big factor. It more so I would say depends on what they do in that space. I think obviously for someone with like more of a direct product like a musician, and I've spoke to quite a few platforms. I'm just blanking a bit on a couple names, but where they do this like music distribution to your fans through that sense and tokenize it, and that stuff is amazing. I love to see that off the start, and I think that pieces like that will help us connect better with the Web2 audience that I think we'll need to connect with long term, and that's kind of been a focus of ours as well. With we've been running Mission Web3 on our platform, which is just kind of meant to help introduce people to this kind of prospect of Web3. And I think that it does tie together at the end of the day of the onboarding of the people that are not involved in the space, which is probably the most difficult part. But I would say would just kind of overall kick off everything together. And I think that there are amazing examples of this already in our real life. It's just not tokenized. It's not on chain. Like a GoFundMe, for example, it's the same. At the end of the day, it's the same concept. I would say just we're taking it to the next level, and it's just kind of hard to get that point across, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think with like reaching the audience, I think it will come probably like with some better UX. The next cycle will be interesting, kind of building these consumer products. And I would say like, yeah, I think kind of when products built on Web3, I feel like one of the big advantages that Web3 has is just that interoperability, right? So like when you have something like Twitter, and let's say you've built your entire business on Twitter APIs, all of a sudden there's an ownership change. Someone decides that, yeah, we'll increase the price by 100x overnight, and now you don't have a business anymore. Like those things happen, and it's not uncommon at all. Like I generally know people who have had to like shut their things down because of issues like this, or like limit the reach of what you can do with APIs, for example. And then yeah, like now you don't have a business anymore. Like Web3, you can't do that, right? Like no one. Like hopefully you don't have that level of admin controls on your smart contract, but no one can kind of like cut you off from using that smart contract. And we've seen people like kind of try this a little bit with NFT marketplaces, and yeah, never really like works out well. And I think like that's the real interesting thing that comes out of that, which is, I have this music platform, let's say, and I issue some tokens like SocialFi tokens to my musicians, and perhaps my platform doesn't work. But hey, maybe through my token, I have created a good community. Now, can I use that token in the next Web3 music platform that comes up and maybe does become a bigger hit? Or I have my music platform, but I also have a Substack. And so like, can I use this in my SocialFi Substack app and then have the same token that I also use for my music without having some weird authorization and API access? I feel like that's where like the real power of SocialFi will come.
Yeah,
No,
especially
I completely agree.
seeing this kind of blending of these like mediums where artists kind of perform, right? Like I remember a few years ago when I can't remember the artist. I think it was like one of the rappers, like Drake or something, performed in Fortnite, and it was kind of like a massive deal where it's like, what? Why is this guy performing a virtual concert in a kids game? It was huge, and I think a lot of the people just didn't quite realize how big it could be. And that's a great example of like these kind of blurring of the medium of where we find and engage with our artists will certainly help SocialFi's case and the interoperability aspect that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think there's almost like increasing demographic shift now between like what apps different age groups use. It's it's insane how much some platforms are underestimated just in terms of their reach. But yeah, like you're absolutely right. And I think the interesting thing will be like if we can have that user journey. So someone starts from being a musician, but now has become an artist or become something else. And especially in today's world, it's not unusual at all for people to be like 5 different things at once. Then like
Agreed.
being able to have that interoperability on your economic layer is also super important.
So we might have the SocialFi Summit coming up at a time soon, very soon.
Very true.
I'm interested. So one aspect of SocialFi obviously is all about the tokenization. You guys are kind of taking slightly different pathways here, right? Where Galaxy is kind of going more the NFT approach. Roll is going different in terms of the more fungible tokens. What's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so we have seen the NFT space. In fact, I was one of the very early CryptoKitties users, which pretty much introduced the ERC 721 standard like back in the day. And kind of like I've seen that evolution through time. NFTs are obviously like very powerful, and I'm very strongly in favor of what they do. But like when you talk of SocialFi or like more of the social capital side of things, like to me, it's a more natural fit with DeFi on the fungibility side of things. Like once you do the NFT route, for example, like you wouldn't be able to really use that in Uniswap without some weird tokenization, and then that actually has its own many like security issues and edge cases that people will have to consider them. And just the idea of and on the distribution side, right? So yeah, like there's like one word obviously like Galaxy does this really well, for example, like distributing some NFTs to users, but then like being able to let's say like almost use that as a currency inside of a community. We always find that to be pretty powerful. So when communities aggregate online, it's like we already like know this, right? Like so there's like a Fortnite community that plays. They're going to have their own language, their own GIFs and memes and everything else. And then like social tokens in some ways, like and everything that SocialFi is doing is in some ways like giving a currency to that digital nation. And having a currency that's like an NFT is very hard. while NFTs obviously are like super powerful in terms of, let's say like a co-op style, like, hey, yeah, you came here and like, here's a badge. It's really good in terms of gaming assets. It's really good in terms of like art assets and provenance and things of that nature. I think like on the hardcore SocialFi thing, we're kind of like stuck with the fungible token side just because it plugs in so much better with the rest of the, I guess like DeFi ecosystem. But yeah, like, again, like nothing against NFTs at all. NFTs are amazing at what they do.
No, I agree. I think there's just a very different, outlook and path for many different pieces of the pie at the end of the day. And yeah, I do agree with you on quite a few points there. And I think that part of how we ended up on the path that we're on now was, the hard parts of NFTs that we realized, and just in the process of tweaking and changing how we distributed, and what the focus was when it came to NFTs for us. And I would say there is a larger focus on NFTs technically, but I would also say that the bigger piece behind that for us are the credentials that we provide to the users through the NFTs. This point of the NFT itself is great, the art is great, but I think that the 10K picture, community aspect, I think will eventually, I think, just die off. I think long term, I don't see that as a format that sticks forever at all. I think that the badge aspect, where it's a lot more of a score. I've done X things. This is proof of doing these X things. I have these credentials. This shows the time I've spent on X platforms, trading, learning. We have our human score which is obviously civil protection, etc. Passport. We're trying to take this to the next level where it's very much your online digital identity, and I think that that's where NFTs will be able to be used better in that aspect with the technology itself. At least for SocialFi in this aspect. The humanities
100%, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, I think like the badges and identity side is like very geared towards NFTs. And like completely agree with the whole 10K PFP thing. Like while it was fun when it lasted, I don't think that's going to be the real impact of NFTs when we look back 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how we're getting to that point where there's all these technologies that we kind of had these focus areas on, and now we're getting to this maturity in the space where we're starting to mix and match and combine all these different technologies together. So you mentioned NFTs, normal fungible tokens, and even decentralized identity, for your credentials. All these things coming together creates these new applications, and it's kind of having this renaissance of more ideas that require mixing different kind of technologies together to achieve.
Yeah, James, like totally. And we see this. Sorry, yeah, and we see this every day as well, honestly, because like one simple example, as like Duncan mentioned, like have this credential, right? Like to say you completed a course and then you get this NFT badge that says like, hey, you have successfully completed this course. But there could also then be an economic incentive. And now all of a sudden you get like 5 tokens of this community that you can perhaps keep 3 and then pass 2 of them on. And those could have an active market. They could be on a bonding curve, could be like Friendtech style tokens where you have access to a community that you wouldn't normally have. And yeah, like all of these things, I think that's why a lot of the Web3 primitives are so powerful, because you can stack them on, right? Like the whole Lego blocks analogy is, I think, very, very relevant.
No, I completely agree. You nailed all the same points I was about to have. So perfect. Thank you.
Touche. I've been asked to interrupt this. Just mentioned the code word for our Zeli quest at the moment. The code word for those listening is roll into the galaxy. I love who's making this up. Roll into the galaxy, one word. And galaxy obviously spelled as in galaxy, Galaxe. Roll into the galaxy is your word. But anyway, I want to talk about communities now, right? Which is what kind of, at its fundamental level, which is what SocialFi is here to help. It's help to build, engage, incentivize, and connect with your communities at a larger scale and more intimately, though, at the same time. What is changing in Web3 in the way that projects need to create and engage with their communities? So how do you think that the space is changing of how we deal with communities these days?
So I'll chime in quickly first for this one. So I think it's grown a lot. The aspect of it has changed over a period of time where early on the community aspect was, I would say, and funny enough, I'd say that the way to phrase it during the bull market was more greedy, I would say. A lot of people were in these communities just for whatever the reward was, right, for being active early. But I think that through that process, we found that those that stuck around were like, oh, this is actually interesting. I'm talking with these people. Through that element of greed, funny enough, they found like-minded people that wanted to grow in the same aspects as them, that liked the same things as them, in this Web3 market, and enjoyed these same projects. And then slowly over time, I think more projects realize that yes, these people have an important voice. And they have good feedback. There's smart people. There's creative people. And that I think that the connection between project, or in quotations business, depending on what you're doing, to user is very important. And that's the big thing in Web2 that I think we've lost, is that connection. And I think that that's where we shine so much more in Web3 is that we have more of a personable relationship with these users that are directly involved in our product. Whereas you just don't get that same aspect with a lot of larger Web2 pieces.
Yeah, completely agree. That
Mhm.
was one of the biggest things for me that was most intoxicating when I got into the space. I used to work in a lot of product management kind of spaces, and you used to have to if you want to talk to a customer that was using your product, you'd have to ask the salesperson, who would then ask their corresponding account manager on that side, and then
Yeah.
after 4 degrees of separation, you'd finally get to the person actually using your product to be able to ask a question that's been relayed over email. In this space, you just jump on a community and ask directly, right? You can just hop it on a Telegram group with any of your customers. It's amazingly connected and personal in the space, and that's such a good thing when you're building products out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I hope we can keep that ethos as more people come into Web3. I think part of this is just a function of having fewer users. But I think a big part of that is the cultural aspect, right? So I think it's kind of up to us, really, kind of everyone on the listening in today, to kind of keep that culture of openness and being able to talk to people and hop on a quick session with everything that you're doing. And I think also the permissionless nature kind of holds teams a little more accountable, because if you are not, I guess, confirming to that ethos, then someone else will build a replacement for you. And we've seen even some of the very large protocols are not immune to that at all. So it's definitely exciting in that way as well.
And it goes back to the point you made at the start, right? Which, in Web3, the various people, whether they're building a project or they're influencers or whatever, they have to be very kind of connectable, right? You can DM anyone on Twitter, and in a way that reputation aspect. In Web2, you kind of have the CEO of a company might be surrounded by a horde of PR kind of advisors, and their image is massaged into a plasticky mirage rather than what they actually are. In Web3, you kind of get to see a window onto the soul in a way, because whatever they say on Twitter is generally just comes from them, or whatever they say on the spaces is direct from the mouth. So it's a lot more kind of personal and direct, which kind of plays into the reputation aspect.
No, I agree. And I think that the piece that Sid mentioned, where to keep it long term, that I think is going to be the hardest part. And it's something that I've focused on with our community. And as it got larger and larger, it became harder and harder to connect with as many users, right? So it was about working around that and still having systems to help understand what's going on. I think honestly, just funny, I'm not trying to self-add too hard, but the easiest way to do that for us was to use our own platform, right? So, and kind of incorporate different things into that, and through actually other people using us as well, and talking to people in different projects, and because I think a big part of us is that connectivity that we provide between different ecosystems and communities, especially through ecosystem campaigns, which we've done, which are super fun. It's helped me learn in this process as well, how to keep personable with an audience, how to keep that level of professionalism at the same time, though, as I think that is also important. I think that it's a lot of take from Web2 while trying to keep that same heart that we had at the start, where obviously, there's points where you need to be a business, and there's points where we keep that same Web3 culture. So.
Yeah, just like maybe one final thought on that would be, I think it's so fulfilling. Like I'm sure, like like you guys feel that as well, Duncan, at Galaxy. Like when you see a user who is kind of like Web2 person, perhaps, all they're doing is connecting their Twitter account or something, and then just going on that Web3 journey with them, kind of like start from like I don't even know what a blockchain means to like 3 months later they're like yield farming on some ZK protocol or something. It's just like incredible to see just some of that journeys, and I think it's just ultimately it's one human at a time. That's how we win.
I completely agree, and I've known quite a few guys now that were in our community a year ago, and now are working in this space, and it's amazing to see. It's really the best part, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
So you guys are kind of building a lot of new kind of niche features, like really interesting kind of different ideas, and trying out different like features and products that you're building. What are kind of maybe one or two products or features or tools that you're most excited about that are yet to come out, that you're kind of like working on at the moment, or someone else is working on? Is there anything that you're really like ideas you're playing around with internally, and you think that could be kind of interesting in the SocialFi area?
Yeah, totally. I can go first. I'm sure like Duncan has thoughts here as well.
Of course.
But like for us, like when we think about SocialFi and like again, like where the space was 4 years ago to like where we are now, and like this new iteration of having like bonding curves and markets and kind of like rewarding communities and all that. I think one part that's a little bit missing, which people may or may not realize immediately, is the idea of interoperability. So this is at least on the fungible token side. I think NFTs are a little different. And the reason is, so you see this all the time, right? So you have, let's say, friend tech, and people are using the app, and then a new app comes up. And if you want to use the app or the new app, there is no way for you to, let's say, like port over your existing community and bonding curve into the new app. So you have to sell and then rebuy on the other side. And that causes a lot of frustration for users, because end of the day, like the person who joined last is probably like losing money, right? In some ways, it's not really getting what they were expecting out of this. So like really trying to reduce that a little bit more, like take the good aspects of it, which is like, hey, I have liquidity. I could exit the community whenever I want to, which I think is very powerful. I no longer agree with the values that this community stands for. And so I can like sell my stake and move on to another community. That's really good, but I should be able to like use my tokens into a bunch of other protocols and different products as well as people are building. So just this idea of having better interoperability while retaining the bonding curve mechanics and markets is kind of an important feature, I think, and something that we are deeply thinking about as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And so yeah, a bit on our side. So we have quite a few things that we've obviously posted about and released and are still being worked on through, I would say, more so like just a longer process. So I'll just kind of cover a few of those things. So earlier in the year, we kind of announced Galaxy 2.0, which involved more token utility on the platform, the mobile app that's coming, Smart Balance, Web3 Score. Web3 Score obviously more so involved getting you a kind of visible representation of the different pieces that you have participated in, whether it's experience, fame, expertise, assets, and humanity, of course, which was the Sybil aspect, which is a very cool piece. We upgraded our Telegram and Discord bots to better connect with the platform and users, as obviously I think that these two specific platforms, Discord and Telegram, I don't think Telegram is a tough one, but Discord I don't think is going anywhere for a long time. I think that they've kind of just hit that monopoly perfectly. Funny enough, even though sometimes the platform can have its troubles, of course, but it is the main place for communities. I think they've done a really good job of that, and I think that we like to lean into that as well. But the big one that I think is very fun that we're working on as one of our goals, and we have made, I'd say, significant strides toward that, is being a open and completely permissionless platform where anyone can create a space at a drop of a hat and access with their users, right? And that's been a hard piece to get to, obviously, due to a medley of things, security, traffic, all of these things need to be incorporated slowly over time as we allow lots of traffic to enter and start creating and make sure that it's a open and powerful space for all. So we've been working on Alva, which is our Galaxy AI, which will be involved in the site and will help to do project research for you on the site itself, to kind of give you a quick intro to what you're seeing, right? As we do have verified spaces, etc. But say you're a brand new user that's hopped on the Galaxy and you're like, hey, I want to get to know what I'm looking at, right? I don't want to click through 7 social links and read a bunch of documents. So we'll actually have our AI help you project research and give you a key layout of what that project is, important links, etc. Obviously, another piece of this is the airdrop hunter aspect, which is a big piece in the space that I think a lot of people love to get involved in. So we've also kind of leaned into this as well for the funness of it, especially during that early launch where people want to get users involved more with the project and reward them when the token launches. We're gonna have a key feature around that as well, and then a market analyst as well, which will kind of help you understand where the market is at during that period in time without having to go through, obviously, tons of different tabs. We're trying to make it so that you can do all of this and access all of these different, social aspects, market aspects, and understanding of what you're looking at in the ecosystem right there on the platform. So that's a really fun one that we've worked on with AI, which I think is a massive piece that is not going anywhere as well. I think that especially in the last little while has gone through leaps and strides. So, but yeah, that's just a few fun aspects right off the brain there for you.
I hope you have time to sleep in between releasing those features, Duncan.
Yeah, so it's a lot that we're working on. It's taking time. I hope everybody listening or those that have been involved in the platform, are enjoying the pieces that we've rolled out over a period of time. But yeah, we're always doing some fun stuff. So the team is working incredibly hard. It's a bunch of amazing people. So
excellent, and that's the main thing, right? That's the summary. It's not about a project can't be successful without the people. The people,
yeah,
whether the people in the team, the people leading the project, or the people in the community that support the project in every way possible. It's all about the people, and that's the key of everything. Thank you very much, Jazz, for joining me for this interesting call. I've learned a bit, and it was great to kind of ramble on with a few cool topics and get your thoughts on a few different ideas. I appreciate you very much for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much. Amazing time, and you guys can always reach out or DM me on Twitter. I'm always around.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. It was super fun. I love the chance to get to chat with varying people all over. It's been the most fun for me in general. Yeah, and I hope to chat again with you guys soon. If you want to reach out, meet me in the Galaxy community. That's the best place to find me. So
excellent. Well, guys, make sure you follow Sid and Duncan for more information, and send them a DM, reach out. But thank you very much for joining for the call, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Cheers, everyone.